Welcome to Raising Daughters, the podcast that helps parents learn the best ways to support their daughters as they navigate the high levels of stress, anxiety, pressure, and uncertainties so pervasive in our culture today. Dr. Tim Jordan is a developmental and behavioral pediatrician who has specialized in counseling girls for over 30 years and sheds light on the realities of today's young women in all facets of their lives. This is your opportunity to learn how to better support your daughters, making them feel safe, secure, and truly loved in the midst of life's ups and downs. Here is your host, Dr. Tim.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to Raising Daughters. I really appreciate you stopping by each week to listen to these podcasts. And I'm going to tackle a topic today that I don't really think I've tackled. I've talked about it in different ways, but not like directly. I'm going to talk about all the pressures and the stressors of working moms. And so I decided to, since I'm not a working mom, I decided to have on an expert to guide us today in talking about why it's different today, the pressures, the stresses on working moms, and some ideas and some tools that you can use so that you can hopefully bring some more balance into your life and more joy as well. So the expert I'm talking about is Julia Sewell. And she has a really nice online community called The Self-Made Mom. And she also is the author of a book that's coming out anytime. Even as we speak, it's in the process of being published. It's called The Self-Made Mom as well. But I think her community is really incredible for working moms. Julia Sewell is the founder of that community. And she's also a self-made mom herself. She's an entrepreneur. She has 3 kids of her own. She has twins and a daughter and a twin boy girl.
2 daughters and a son.
And she's a performance coach. So she has all these interesting coaching certifications. And she is, for the last dozen years or more, she has been guiding thousands of women to take more control of their life. And I think one of her missions, as I read on her site, is that she wants to help working moms regain their joy, which is, I think, a very important mission. So thank you so much, Julia, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I am so happy to be here today.
Is there anything I missed in your intro that would be important for people to know about you or your expertise?
Well, I think it's important to mention that not only do I have experience coaching working mothers to a high degree of performance in personal and professional lives, which you learn so much through experience by interpreting and helping women travel their own paths. But like you said, I'm doing that myself. I'm also married to a primary career holder, which matters. It is another level of intricacy to think through how we balance 2 primary careers in our household and 3 children and a dog and, all of those things. And that does add another layer of complexity to the conversation. So should add that for those who it is important to. I'm a master performance consultant. I'm a certified coach, a certified master trainer, and I've done a lot of work credentializing myself so that it is not just, hey, here's what I've experienced and you should do this too. There is actual science behind this. There's knowledge and learning, and that matters over time.
I wonder what's different for today's moms that may have been maybe different than previous generations. Have you seen that in the women that you're coaching?
Certainly. So I talk about this in my book, and what is really happening is 2 things. The current working mother is navigating a work environment that was built for men, and that's not to disparage men. I love men; they're absolutely fantastic. But workplaces were built for men, but they welcome the talent of women and haven't adjusted their structures. And so women are trying to fit into a lot of workplace structure that doesn't accommodate their needs. So that's number 1. We can talk about more of that in just a moment. But number 2 is the working mother now has more exposure than ever with social media, and there are eyes on everything that she's doing, and judgment from both sides, right? You're not working enough, you're not momming enough. She has more exposure as well as more isolation than ever. People aren't functioning in the same community structures as they have before. It takes a village is like a laughable statement now because we all live 10 hours from our families and so on. And so we're exposed, but we're also alone. And that creates this very difficult path to navigate for a working mother when she's living really at the service to her job or her family and rarely remembers herself. And there's all of that cloudiness that comes from everyone's watching me, but I'm alone and I don't have a path. And, what does that mean for me as a working mother?
And I think on average, not every working mom, but on average, moms today are older when they start.
Certainly.
So they're late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, late 30s. It's a different. So they're a different person than if they had their first kid when they were 22.
Well, and which means that their career has been a huge part of their identity for much longer before they become a mother than ever before. And the identity crisis that happens after you become a mother, if you do work, is dramatic. And so this re-identification of self is a bigger hill to climb when for a decade and a half, that, say you have your first child at 35, which is not uncommon. All you've known yourself to be is a working woman. And then all of a sudden, being a working woman or, working pales in comparison to being a mother, or the imbalance is impossible to navigate. Those two things feel at war with each other. No longer can you do what you used to do at work to find self-actualization, and no longer can you finish a to-do list and, find self-worth in that way, because the to-do list never ends once you're a mom. So there's a lot of conflict that comes from I quote unquote did what was right. I built my career first. That's what we're all told we're supposed to do. And it makes it more difficult. Yeah. That's just all there is to it.
You talk in your book about the need for working moms to develop real and sustainable intrinsic motivation. Talk about that for a moment. I thought that was a really important point.
Thank you. So really what I'm getting at with that theme in the book is to address the reactivity of being a working mother and the chasm that creates for any kind of true hardcore set of personal values, any identity that is rooted in self, not others, any sustainable fuel sources, for our lives. When you live in this reactive state, which happens so much for working mothers, right? Work needs this, spouse needs this, kids need this, and I'm the person who provides all of those things. Rarely do we remember, oh, wait, hold on. I actually believe in this. And so subsequently, I should govern my choices that way. That just gets lost. You just forget. And if you don't have something to believe in and you don't have fuel for those beliefs, motivation can be very hard, and true confidence can be very hard to develop because the front end work hasn't been done.
Yeah. And I think if I can say this, I think it's probably true. I think this generation of young parents has gone through a parenting cycle that's been very externally motivating, rewards and bribes and praise and all that kind of stuff. I think there's been such a overemphasis on grades and top colleges and club sport teams and all that kind of thing. And I think then and so when you're out in the workforce, you probably get accolades for each achievement and all. It's like you have this path, and all of a sudden you have a kid, and it's like, where's my audience? Where's the 100%. Applause? Or even where, all of a sudden that self-confidence takes a big hit, I think.
There is no confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no true inner confidence. It's all extrinsically or externally affirmed and motivated. That's really what the book is about, is this self-making journey that a working mother can go on, where she doesn't just find joy. That is 100% the goal, but she also recaptures power. And she then begins to develop an intentional way of life to subsequently seek joy as the long-term result. But, however, whatever word you want to use, that requires the establishment of a set of inner values and the ability to clap for yourself that most current working mothers have never established.
Yeah.
We don't know how to say, this is what I believe in, and I'm proud of the work I did toward that today, no matter what the external, result was of that work. But that's what self-making is. Self-making is finding yourself and rooting in these deep beliefs and letting the opinions of others and the comparison game and all of that kind of bounce off your brain because you are so convicted in your own path. I really struggled with the fluidity of my identity. I told my husband one time after we had our twins, we had a singleton first and then we had the twins, thank goodness. And I told him that I felt like a puzzle piece that had gotten wet. And I was still this puzzle piece, but I no longer fit into my life, my previous life. Yeah. So how do you figure that out? So I was the same, but different, same in a million ways, different in a million ways, and really what I was verbalizing without knowing it to him was, I don't have my own sense of self from which to fuel proactive choices, proactive boundaries, proactive moves in life, everything is just happening to me,
Mm.
which is, I mean, that is like a working mom's day-to-day experience. All those things are happening to me and I'm just responding. And that is so depleting over time.
I also think I work with girls in my camps, retreats, and everything, grade school, middle school, high school, and I also counsel young women who are kind of college age in their early 20s. And one of the things that I've found is a lot of the pressure and stress they face, even as girls, as opposed to young women, is this sense of there's this one path they're all supposed to walk on. You go to college, you get good grades, you go out, you get a good job, you make a lot of money. They've all been kind of squished on that path. You're supposed to lean into the top of your field, whatever that may be. And I think if you don't have that core you're talking about, which is so important, it's hard to know, well, what is my path? What fits for me or what's right for me? And I think a lot of them end up on paths that don't really fit for them.
You are 100% correct. The should, this is what I should be
Mm.
doing, is the enemy of this is what I want to do. This is what I love to do. This is the role that fulfills me. You're right that a woman who has previously been majorly career oriented, who then after children feels either less career oriented or wants to do it differently, wants to have, maybe she wants to become an entrepreneur and have more autonomy, whatever it is, there's not really a lot of space to talk about that. Nobody really
Mm.
says, it's okay to dial it back while you have little kids. That's great. Proud of you.
Mhm.
They say, oh, sorry, you had to dial it back while you had little kids. So there's this negative connotation to that, when in fact, that woman is bravely stating her truth, and that takes so much courage. And for her to get kind of smacked around as a result of that courageous realization is unfortunate. And that's the thing that we have to change is we have to change the I'm a career woman or I'm a mother, and those two things are at
Mm.
war with each other. So I'm constantly trying to fight this balance. What if we said, I am a woman? And part of my personal brand, I know that's a very business acumen type of term, but part of my personal brand is I pursue excellence at work and I pursue excellence at home, meaning in my mothering and my spousal and my individual pursuits. And I've done the work to find the balance between those two things. It absolutely does exist, but it doesn't exist unless you are brave and you set boundaries and you establish your own core values. That's the whole self-making journey, is to decide,
Yeah.
okay, what is my new personal brand and what do I need to do in my life to make that happen?
Yeah. So, and what is excellence at home and at
To
work
me.
mean for me?
Yes,
I mean,
for
the
me,
culture
not for my
says,
workplace.
yeah,
Yeah, all of that.
you're the CEO or you're making a lot of money. The culture has all kinds of ideas about what that means. But I don't think we've taught our young people, our kids, our young people to think for themselves and to
Mhm,
do that just right when they're little kids. And we don't ask them
mhm.
enough questions about why do you like what you're doing or why do you want to do that or what kind of grades do you want and why is that important to you? We don't ask those kinds of questions. So we plop them out into the world as adults and they haven't learned to talk or think for themselves or to access their intuition. And then we expect them to all of a sudden be this empowered person who's making these choices and all
Yeah.
that when we haven't prepared them.
Sure. And they think they know where they should go,
Yeah.
but again, should, and have no idea what the steps are because it's not really where they should go. So it's just this kind of amorphous idea in the future of what I've been told to be, but I'm not connected to it. So I have no drive to establish the steps to get there. And so I'm just lost. I'm just
So
a
what so
lost
what yeah,
child.
so what do you do with women who are moms who you're working with in your community? How do you help them to bridge that gap to now they are empowered and now they are thinking for themselves? How do you get them there?
It is formulaic. So not to take the warmth and the emotion out of it, but there are definitely skill sets and learnings that when you take the time to bring them into your life, and I'll reference some in just a moment, when you take the time to bring them into your life, they then become your norm. They become a toolkit you can access. You wear your tool belt around. You can access these tools when life kicks you around, and it gives the confidence and courage to then go do what is right inside no matter what everybody else is doing. That's the goal of self-making, is to get to the point where you're so convicted about the choices that you're making
Hmm.
for you, for your family. You've done the work and you are so convicted that it really doesn't matter what the person over there is doing. You're just happy for them that they're doing it. That's all, you
So how
know?
do you how do you get them to undo the good girl conditioning that says you should not disappoint people, you should please people. I think that's a big piece for women, right?
100%. Yes. So the undoing involves reestablishing who you're serving.
Mm.
Are you serving these external circumstances, or are you serving your truth, right? And if you let truth be your boss, so to speak, your self-made truth be your boss, it matters less. We are human. There will still be moments where you're like, wow, that really hurt my feelings. Oof, that person's conflicting opinion makes me feel uncomfortable. And then you go back to your values and you say, and I can live with that because I know I'm pursuing my long-term goals. So some of the self-making tools and, trainings and learnings that we do are, the very first thing I do is I let a woman express her pain in a really unfiltered way. Sarah, tell me your pain, whatever it is. And she gets an opportunity to completely let that out, which there is nowhere else to do, without judgment, completely let it out. And then we say, okay, and now that is out. First thing is to identify, what are your core values as a person? You woman, what are your core values? Which women are never asked. Women are never asked. Men all the time are asked, stand up for these values. And women are said, adhere to your spouse's values or your workplace's values or your family, your first family's values.
Or the good girl conditioning.
Correct. Like, when I was growing up, if I didn't have the same belief system as my family, that's a problem, right? Or if I were to express a conflicting belief to my husband, even in the world we live in today, people would go, oh, I don't love that. That makes me feel a little uncomfortable, right? And so you establish your personal set of core values. That's the first step to recapturing your own power as a woman. And then you explore where your self-worth has landed. Because I would guess, as a working mother, it's landed in some places that are not appropriate, like the amount of things I can do every day, or how perfect my children are, or how much money I made last year, or any of the things that aren't actually attached to the core values we just established.
Yeah.
Self-worth is so extrinsically sourced for women. When those sources dry up or those sources aren't available, we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
We can't fuel ourselves. It's very dangerous. A good example of that is, so many women are validation addicted. It comes from, there are positive reasons and negative reasons why. But if someone doesn't affirm that you look beautiful, or your work was hard enough, or your kids are smart enough, or whatever, you think, I must be doing something wrong. Instead of saying, my kids are exactly what I want them to be. I'm working exactly hard enough. I know what a win looks like for me, and I got that win today, that kind of thing. So those are the reestablishment of power techniques. And then we talk about intention. Living life in an intentional way. A lot of the intention practice is about rewriting truth into your life and letting your truth govern your choices. So instead of, buying in to the lies that you're never going to be good enough, actually establish what good enough means for you, and then give yourself opportunity to live that way and prove to yourself that you are. That's an example of that. There is a formula. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
We're talking with Julia Sewell. She's the author of a book called The Self-Made Mom. And she also has a really valuable online community called The Self-Made Mom as well, that I think I'll give you guys the links, and she'll give it to us, and I'll put it in my show notes as well. So we're talking about working moms and how they can sort of regain their lives, if you will. I remember like 100 years ago, I was getting a little bit, I lost a little bit of my zest for what I was doing. And I remember one of my mentors, this is probably 30, 40 years ago, if I can say that. And he said, what happened is I was giving talks, or we were running retreats, and people would say, oh, you changed my life, that was so great, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't landing anymore. It's just like, it didn't mean anything. So he said, your problem isn't what you're doing, it's why you're doing it. He said, you need to shift your intention. So my intention was, I came from a background as a kid. I had 7 siblings, and the background, one of my old issues was never being good enough. I had 2 older brothers, just for a whole bunch of reasons. And so I was still trying to prove myself. I needed that external stuff to make me feel okay. So I shifted my intention from all of that to being of service. And so everything I did, I made sure that was the underlying intention. It made all the difference in the world. And I would guess that the women that you work with, when they take the time to look inward and say, what is right for me? What are my core values? What is this about? What do I want? That once they find that intention, that one of the things that they will notice is that they're a lot happier and they're a lot lighter and they're less stressed and less pressured, all those things. I guess that would be one way for them to judge, am I on the right track?
Yes, clarity is lightness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's simplicity. One of the things that working mothers deal with more than anything is decision fatigue. And decision fatigue greatly decreases when you know where you're going and why. If you know why you're here, and I really had an epiphany, might be the right word, that maybe that's hyperbole, but an epiphany about the words sacrifice and service as it pertains to working mothers while I was writing the book. And what I realized was that we've mistaken service for sacrifice, and in some cases for self-abandon. Yeah. And it comes from a wonderful place. It comes from deep love and devotion. It comes from worthiness tied to things like work achievements. I mean, those are pure. It is pure to want to serve your family. And without thought and without intention, that purity becomes tainted and turns into self-abandon, which equals resentment and martyrdom, and a lot of the things that mothers eventually express in a kind of an ugly way. And they just don't know what else to do because they've gone way too far down this path, right? Myself included. And it's the way that I like to illustrate this, a visual imagery to my clients is, think of the table, the Thanksgiving table that you set for your family. It is beautiful. It's well thought out, and they are beloved. You've adjusted the menu. You've made sure everyone has their favorite beverage. You've done it at the right time of day to serve everyone. And then walking up to the table and realizing that you didn't even set yourself a seat at that table.
Yeah.
Your beloveds are at the table and you don't even have a place to sit. And I have goosebumps just saying that out loud, but that is what working mothers do.
Yeah.
The self-abandoning is a scary, scary thing.
And ever since they were little girls, what was affirmed? Selfless service, other people's needs are more important.
You take such good care of your brother, your sister,
That's where it starts.
Oh, yes. I accidentally do it all the time. Even though I'm writing a book about it, I still do it to my daughters.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, what are our daughters, what are women's daughters learning if they watch their moms being stressed out and lacking confidence? And I think it's almost, I say this to girls today, especially girls who go to private schools. There's this contagiousness of stress and pressure. Like who's the most stressed? There's a competition for who stayed up the latest doing their homework. Who's the most stressed out. But I also think that may be true with women in the workforce. It's
no question.
Their conversations are about, I have no time. I'm so stressed. I have no sleep.
Busyness is the currency.
Yeah.
And if you're not overwhelmed and overworked, you must be doing it wrong. And that is what we're communicating to our daughters by showing them that every day. And what happens, and this is not intentional, of course, but what happens is then the daughters begin to associate having a career and being a mother with inability to be excellent and subsequent negativity as a result. Like, I will never be enough. I will always be stressed. And service is negative, but I still have to do it if I'm going to be of value to this world. And so my whole life, my sacred life, when's the last time, working mother that's listening, you remembered that your life was sacred? My sacred life doesn't matter as much as career ambition or serving my children or serving my partner or whatever it is. That sacred life gets put on pause. I call it the sacrifice pause in the book. We talk a lot about it. You live in this misery gap of, I really need more education to advance in my career, but I can't do that because my partner has these big projects and I must serve my children. And so you just live in this on pause state because you believe that if you don't do that, if you don't serve everyone else, they'll get less and you'll be bad. And that's where it goes straight to, I am bad. That's the sentence.
I'm a bad girl.
I'm bad.
I'm not it's not funny, but I think I hear it all the time. I like the word sacred. One thing, the way we describe our circles at camp is like it's a sacred space. It's not a religious space at all, but it's a space where you can be real, be authentic, share your story, hear other stories, realize I'm not the only one. I think a lot of women probably lack that, although that's probably one of the things that your online community does for them.
Absolutely. So, the ability to share and not be judged is one of the big offerings of the online community, but the ability to also connect and learn from peers, and connect and understand you're not alone. Because again, that exposure plus isolation is this swamp that a woman lives in all the time right now. So no, you are not alone. I see you. What working moms really need is someone to say, I see you. I see
Yeah.
how hard you're working. I see your deep depletion. I also see your excellence. I see your talent. I see your beauty. I see your ambitions, not just your kids and not just your home and not just your career achievement list. I see you.
Hmm.
That's what we want to do at our community and in our retreats. We have retreats as well. And these are 3-day experiences where women come
Hmm.
together and they pull back all the curtains and
Yeah.
rebuild themselves. They dump the bad and pull in the good and leave a different version of themselves. And it's wild. We're going to do one in October this year, and it'll be my 8th one. So we've done a lot
Nice.
of these, and they are so transformative to the women that attend. And we also have the safe self-making experience within the book movement, which is a coaching program you can join, get into it for a year, and you self-make. You go through
Yeah.
this power, intention, and joy journey. With joy is the ultimate goal, right? Being able to, which to me, joy is the experience of life that allows the bad just as much as the good, because you're convicted, you know where you're headed, you're confident enough to be able to handle discomfort. You allow your whole human experience to exist instead of just the good. That's what joy means to me.
Mhm.
Pursuing your life's work, knowing where you're headed, even if there's some bumps along the way, you're confident enough to handle those. But yeah, that's the goal, is to create this. I struggled with using the word movement for a long time because women have been taught to self-deprecate, to appear humble. And so I thought, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, there's no way I'm qualified to create a movement. I am just some little lady over in, whatever. But the truth is yes, I am. And this movement needs to happen. Women need to have the ability to stop functioning at the highest level ever while being super depleted and have no joy. And there is a map, and you go through the journey, and then you still get to function at a high level. Excellence is still there for you, but you do it differently, with boundaries, with joy, it's just, again, the sanctity of your life is real, and it
Yeah.
is worthy. You are worthy of this work. That's what I say to my clients all the time. You are worthy of this work.
Yeah. We're talking with Julia Sewell, and that's spelled Sewell. I'm going to have her in just a moment give you the link to get a hold of her. She's the author of a book called The Self-Made Mom, and also a movement, an online movement community for moms to join, to get support and to get also the trainings and the retreats, all kinds of information about helping them take more charge of their life. If you have a time, I want to ask you one more question, because something I read in your book reminded me of my mom. My parents had some financial difficulties kind of later in life, probably like when they were in their 50s, maybe early 60s. But anyway, so my mom had never worked outside the home. Obviously, there are 8 kids, so that was
Yeah, I mean, she was working.
that was her job.
Yes.
And so, but anyway, she ended up getting a job in a hardware store.
Oh,
And because one of the things you talk about in your book is transferable skills. And so
yes.
they put her in, the aisle that had all the nuts and bolts. And she organized that aisle like there's no tomorrow. And it was clean and organized, and all the
Mhm.
things were in the right place. And because she thought she had no skills, she thought, she had no self-confidence, because she went from high school to pregnant,
Right.
which was not uncommon in that day. And so
Sure.
she never really had been out in the world to gain a sense of, what's my worth, or what are my skills. And so she never, I think there's probably a lot of women, not just my mom, who don't really acknowledge within themselves that they have more skills and more experience that are really applicable out in the real world.
Oh my goodness, yes. Mothering prepares you for so many different ways you work in the world. She was the perfect person to organize that nuts and bolts aisle, because she actually understood how you might use them, how you approach a project, how to do
Yeah,
it efficiently, because she had 8 kids, so everything had to be efficient, right? She was the perfect person to do that. And book knowledge would have meant nothing in that
yeah,
moment. How to use this actually meant. Um, the transferable skills reference is a mechanism for building confidence that we talk about in the book. It's as one of the 4 builders of confidence. You can acknowledge the transferable skills that you have from all of the previous jobs and lives you've led that got you to where you are. but we forget. I call it transferable skills amnesia, where you just kind of like, boop,
Mhm.
lose everything in your head because you're intimidated by a circumstance. So that's the reference here. But yes, I think that that women are unwilling to overstate their capabilities
Mhm.
and most often understate their capabilities just out of a sense of humility or perhaps fear of being judged or something like that. And in that case, your mom was more than capable of doing that job and every other job in that hardware store, I'm sure,
Yeah, yeah.
but she didn't have proof, right? She had never written down a list for herself of the proof that she had that she could do this work, which is one of the things that we do as you self-make,
Yeah.
is we write down proof. We keep track of it, make a list.
Before I let you go,
Okay.
what's you've had a lot of trainings yourself to get to where you are and to be able to do what you do. I'm just curious, what's one of the most important things that you learned about you along the way? Like for me, that shifting my intention was one big piece that really helped me a lot. I'm just curious if what's a moment for you from a mentor, an experience that really helped you shift into a different gear.
Can I say two answers? The first answer is, I know, oh, so many answers. The first answer
Empowered women.
is,
Not
I
one's
know, got to say some
one's not
things. We
enough.
have
Yeah.
words to say. The first answer was when I went into a mentor's office, just a big old mess at work one time, just, defeated and disappointed in my own performance. And I went in there with this steadfast conclusion that I couldn't do it and I was so bad. And he said, hold on, let's just ask some questions. Let's just look at this through a logic lens for a minute. And I had never, as a woman, been coached to think like that before,
Mm,
to think logically, to say, like, stop for 1 minute and let's just ask some questions about the circumstances surrounding how you feel. What is reality here instead of just how you feel? What could the solutions be? Have you actually tried to brainstorm? The answer was no, of course. I was just upset. And that really helped me shift and welcome in this idea of using logic and business acumen to apply to our overwhelmingly crazy lives, and so that we can sort and organize and find solutions. What working mothers really need is a solution.
mhm.
And sometimes that solution is develop core values. Sometimes it's exit an environment that isn't right for you, right? And there's everything in between. But a solution, thinking that through made a huge difference. Allowing myself to do that made a huge difference in my life. The second shift in my thinking was to understand the deep power of the micro impact. I have had moments in my career where I have thought to myself, well, I'm just talking to one person at a time. And is it really that
Mm,
meaningful? Even though it adds up to thousands and thousands and thousands, is it really that meaningful to just coach one person? But then over time, I've seen that one person talk to one person, and then they talk to one person, and the movement begins from these micro impacts. And by the way, what if micro impacts is why I'm here? What if
mhm.
my job is to change one woman's life per day? Not only does that add up, but it's really special to think
Yeah.
about getting to change one person's life through one conversation. And the word micro has a diminishing type of connotation, but that's not diminished at all. That's a big deal. And so accepting that micro impact, micro conversations, micro change was going to be the way that I made an impact on this world was a huge shift in thinking for me in my career.
And it's good enough.
Totally good enough.
More
And
than
you
good
know what?
enough.
It's so good. It is
Yeah.
so rewarding to have that woman pick up the phone a year later and say, "You really changed me." Yes, that is what I'm doing. Yes.
So how can people get a hold of you so you can change their lives as well? Okay. What's it?
Well,
What's
you can find all the things. Yeah.
yeah.
So community, the self-making experience, the retreat, access to the book, all of the things will be at theselfmademom.com. Our community is free. So you can join our online community. I recorded a digital masterclass on there, which is so much knowledge that you can learn on your own time. You can participate in our bi-weekly mom meetups, which are live coaching sessions with me. You can communicate with other women all for free. And when you do that, then of course you'll hear about when the book comes out and when we have retreats and things like that. But that's where you go first, is go to theselfmademom.com and join the community and just start. That's all you have to do.
And then sometime, hopefully in the next month or so, your book will actually come out and they can read the whole
Hallelujah.
book.
Yes,
Yeah.
the whole book will come. The
So,
digital masterclass is really the book in a video. So if you really want to get that information now, go watch that digital masterclass on the community. It's just really me speaking it in a video to you. And then all of our social handles are the Self-Made Mom on all of the different platforms. You can it's all the same on those too. If you
Well,
want to
thank you
follow
so
us.
much for joining Raising Daughters. I appreciate your input and your knowledge. I think it's really helpful for moms who have heard this, and hopefully they will not only listen to it, but pass it on and or listen to it with their
Absolutely.
daughters, if their daughters are
Yes.
old enough. So we've been
Yes.
talking to Julia Sewell, Sewell, and her website is theselfmademom.com. So you can go there and find out all the things that she's been talking about and that the different programs that she runs. So thank you again so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on Raising Daughters, and good luck to you. You're doing great work.
Thank you. It was just utterly enjoyable to be here. I loved it.
Well, I hope that was helpful for you. That was great. Julia Sewell, great information. I would go to her website and I would join her community. It's free. And to get some support, get some information, get some new insights at the least. And she let me know that when her book comes out, which is sometime probably in the next month or so, she'll send me a link to that. But you can also, you'll see it if you're on her website. So this may be a good one to listen to with your daughters and talk about them starting, even when they're girls, thinking for themselves and allowing themselves to be in charge of what it means to them to be successful, on track, their own path, etc. As always, I'll be back here in a week with a brand new podcast. If you have a question that you'd like for me to answer on air without using your name, obviously, send it to my wife. Email it to my wife at Anne, ANNE, at drtimjordan.com, and I will answer the question on air at the end of a future podcast. So thank you for that. I'll be back here in a week. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Raising Daughters. Hopefully you've learned something useful about girls and young women and how to help them navigate the pressures, challenges, and opportunities of modern life. If you want to become a more effective parent, keep listening to the show at drtimjordan.com and let the conversations shape you. Build that one-of-a-kind connection with your daughters in the most profound and meaningful ways possible, shaping them into strong, confident women of the future. That's all for now. See you next week for another episode of Raising Daughters.